Oakville is a very small city in Grays Harbor County in the US state of Washington, with a population as of 2020 of 715 people. It became officially incorporated in 1905, with a booming railway industry among the main catalysts for the early foundation of the small community. In 1909, a report by the Railroad Commission of Washington described Oakville as follows. Oakville is a town of about 400 inhabitants, located on the line of the Northern Pacific Trailer in the centre of an important lumbering and taking district. The timber resources of this section are of immense value, and the bottom lands are well adapted to general farming. Oakville is a growing town and will develop more rapidly as the resources of the surrounding district are more thoroughly exploited. In these first few decades, Oakville had a booming trade in lumber, providing a lucrative base for new inhabitants and a strong economy. Other businesses sprang up in the burgeoning city to sell to the groups of workers that these trades brought in. However, the timber industry began to fade with the advent of modern building materials and fuel sources in later years. As a result, many of these other businesses shut down due to lack of customers. These days, Oakville's main businesses include a small grocery store, several diners, an organic bedding manufacturer, an auction house, and a few farms on the city outskirts. However, one night in this sleepy American town, a mysterious occurrence presented itself that has never been explained to this day. On the night of August 7th, 1994 at 3 AM, rain began to fall, blanketing a 20 square mile area. At the time it first began, Officer David Lacey was on patrol with a civilian friend. When he turned his windshield wipers on, it was evident that this was not rain, as the substance was smearing across his windshield, impacting his visibility. The obscured windshield forced him to pull into a gas station to try and clean it manually after donning a pair of latex gloves for safety. He described it as being very mushy, almost like if you had jello in your hand. Local resident Dottie Hearn stepped outside after it had stopped and noticed it was everywhere. At first, it looked like hailstones, but when she touched it, she noticed it had an odd gelatinous texture. By the afternoon that same day, David, Dottie, and various other residents had become mysteriously and violently ill. They described having difficulty breathing, extreme vertigo, blurred vision, and an increasing sense of nausea. Beverly Roberts, another resident, said that everyone in town contracted a flu-like illness that lasted 2 to 3 months. Additionally, several cats and dogs that came into contact with the substance fell ill and died. An hour after first noticing her symptoms, Dottie was found sprawled on a bathroom floor, conscious but very weak. Her daughter, Sunny Barclift, described her as feeling cold and sweat-drenched, looking pale. She was moved to the hospital where she stayed for 3 days and was diagnosed with a severe inner ear infection. As she was being moved to there, Sunny remembered the odd rain and, thinking that there might be a connection to Dottie's illness, collected a sample and sent it to the hospital. A lab technician, Mike Osweiler, examined it and found that it contained human white blood cells, but couldn't identify what it was or how it came from the sky. The sample was quickly sent to the Washington State Department of Health for further study. Mike McDowell, a microbiologist, noted that it was teeming with 2 species of bacteria, one of which lives in the human digestive system. Several theories cropped up at the time to explain the appearance of the blobs, though none have been proven correct. A popular theory with the townsfolk at the time was the jellyfish theory, which postulated that the blobs were the result of bombing runs by the military in the ocean 50 miles or 80 kilometers away, causing an explosion within a group of jellyfish, which were then dispersed into a rain cloud. Although neither Barclift or Osweiler favoured the idea, the theory was so popular with the townsfolk that there was discussion of holding a jellyfish festival, and that the local tavern even concocted a new drink in honour of the incident, the jellyfish, composed of vodka, gelatin and juice. Another theory, propagated by David Little, who handled the original analysis of the blobs, was that the blobs were drops of concentrated fluid waste from an airplane toilet, though when Barclift contacted the FAA about this later, the idea was rebuffed, as she was told that all commercial plane toilet fluid had dyed blue, a property the blobs did not possess. In more recent years, Sunny Barclift gave another detailed account of what she experienced over the period. After recounting the details we've already discussed in this video, she had the following to say. At some point, Mike McDowell drew the conclusion that the material itself was man-made and was being used as a matrix, a vehicle capable of transporting a virus or bacteria. He reported his findings to his supervisor, When he returned to the lab at some point, he discovered the substance was missing. Again, he reported this to his supervisor and was advised at that point to not ask any questions. I suspect he was reluctant to speak of it while he was still employed. After retiring, he stated that it was the first time in 30 years of service with his job that a sample he was responsible for had gone missing. Over the years, I've held some information close to me. Very little about it has been released to the press. However, 2 years ago some information surfaced on the internet that led me to the conclusion that the Oak Hill event was in fact a continuity exercise conducted by the military. No samples of the substance exist today, as claimed by the Washington Department of Health. To summarise, it seems as though this strange incident and the resulting investigation has raised more questions than answers. With officials claiming that no further samples exist, it would seem as though this mystery will never be solved for certain. Was the case of the Oakville Blobs the result of a bizarre natural phenomenon, or a clandestine cover-up for a military operation gone wrong? Normally, this could be chalked up to a reasonable explanation, but reports on samples mysteriously going missing and the blobs causing widespread illness seems to rule out the theory that this was simply caused by some exploded jellyfish. Of course, this wouldn't be the first time that the American military have tested on citizens without their knowledge, but we can explore that rabbit hole during a future video. This does lend some weight though to the theory that this originated from a man-made source. The frustrating truth is though that we will likely never know the true cause of the blobs that descended on a small American city over 25 years ago. All we can do is speculate and wonder, what if?